Hi there, this is Phil Simborg from the BackgammonLearningCenter.com, where we have 21 teachers teaching in 9 languages, and our teachers are some of the best players and teachers in the world, and happy to work with people from all levels. I'm here today to talk about the doubling cube. I'm told that there are about 200 million people around the world playing backgammon, and almost all are playing without the doubling cube. They're playing the traditional game of backgammon that was created some 5,000 years ago, and they play the game to the very end and try to win a game. And if they win a game, they win a point. Most of them are wagering a dollar or 50 cents or whatever, or just playing for the fun. And if you win the game, you win 1 point. And it's called Tavla or SheshBesh, many other names. It's also called backgammon, but it's not the modern backgammon with the doubling cube. The doubling cube added a degree of excitement to this game that made the game boom in the United States and most of Western Europe and other places, and it's a lot more complex and exciting. The basic backgammon game you play for 1 point. Whoever wins the game wins 1 point. If you win a gammon, which is a double game, you win 2 points. A double game is when you get all your checkers off while your opponent still has checkers on no checkers off. So, for example, if red rolls here, he takes off these 2 checkers, he will win a double game because blue doesn't have any checkers off. You can also win triple. A triple game would be a backgammon, and here's an example of a backgammon. In this case, if red doesn't roll a 1, he rolls a 3, 2, or takes both checkers off, he'll win a triple game because blue has 1 or more checkers in the inner board of red. He would also lose a backgammon if he had a checker on the bar when red takes off both checkers. So if red rolls doesn't roll a 1 here, he wins a backgammon, which is triple. Sometime in about the 1930s, some sadistic person in New York, I am told, came up with the idea of a doubling cube. The doubling cube says that before you roll, if you think you're winning sufficiently, you can double the stakes. And let me just show you a typical position where that might happen. Let's pretend that red is on roll here, and he is winning by quite a bit, and he thinks he can win this game most of the time, and he will. He's on roll, and he's up quite a bit in the race, actually 18 pips, or he needs 18 little dots on the dice, less, or pips on the dice, less than his opponent. He's clearly a favorite here. So he should double the stakes. He should offer the cube by turning it to 2. Blue has 2 choices. Actually, and there's a third choice, but let's talk about the first 2 primary choices. He can either accept the cube, in which case he's playing for twice as much money or twice as many points, or he can just quit and drop the cube like a bet in poker. Just drop it, fold your hand. He can fold his hand here and lose 1 point, which is what he should do. Red has a very big lead here, and red should double. Why should red double? He's going to win 92% of the time. Why shouldn't he want to play for twice as much? Why should blue take the cube when he's only going to win 7% of the time? By the way, I'm using a program called Extreme Gammon, www.extremegammon.com. It's better than any human, and it really gives you very, very accurate information. It's not 100% perfect, but it's very, very close to that. In positions like this, it is pretty much close to 100%. So red should double. Now, why should red double? He's going to win 92% anyway. Because if he doesn't double, he could easily lose 7% of the time. Why should he risk that? And of course, there is the possibility that blue might do something stupid like take the cube and play for twice as much. Now, we can make the position much tougher. We can make it where red only has a fairly slight lead. Let's take a look at this, where red is only up 5 pips in the race. Now, he's still barely right to double. He's still going to win about 70% of the time. And he should offer the cube, because when you're a 71% favorite, 72% favorite, why shouldn't you play for twice as much? That's a good bet, isn't it? And look at this. It's surprising to most people that blue only wins this game 28% of the time, and he's still better off taking than passing. Why? Because 25% is his break even. If you played the game 4 times or 100 times, anytime he wins more than 25%, he loses less by taking the cube than by dropping the cube? The simple answer is if he drops, he loses for sure. And if he can win more than 25%, when you add it all up and do the math, you're better off taking than passing. I could show you the actual math. I'm not going to get into those details right now, but just trust me that it's 25%. You can work it out for yourself. Pretend you played this game 100 times and you passed 100 times, you would lose 100 points. If you took 100 times, 72 times, you would win. You would lose 2 points, and 28 times you would win 2 points, and you would come out ahead by taking. You would lose less in total. I'll show you a more simple illustration later. So this is the basis of the game. And by the way, when you turn the cube to 2, in this case there's not any chance of any gammons or backgammons, but there's all kinds of situations where you will double when there are chances of gammons and backgammons, and that's a consideration because when you take the cube on 2, you could get backgammon and lose 6. So you could drop right away and just lose 1 and not take that chance. Or you could get gammoned and lose 4. Backgammons, as you know, don't happen that often, but gammons are not that rare. They happen from the very beginning. Around 14% of every game, one player or the other gets gammoned. Let me just show you that. Here's the starting position, and let's just see if red were to double on the first roll here, which would be silly. He would win the gammon about 14% of the time because he's on roll. So you do take a risk of the gammons and backgammons, but it makes it a lot of excitement and adds a lot to the game. And in a match where you're playing to a certain number of points, it makes the game much, much more complex because the winning a gammon or backgammon and winning your points, your extra point, or not, changes in values quite a bit depending on the score. If one player's way ahead in the score, it doesn't help him that much to win a gammon, but it hurts him a lot to lose a gammon, for example. That's just an example of how things can change in match play and why match play has become so popular and so exciting, and that's where most of the tournaments are played in match play with the doubling cube. But most private games are played one game at a time. Each game counts individually, and it doesn't matter what happened the previous game. So it's a single game, and 25% is the magic number for whether you take or pass a cube. Let me show you an interesting position that illustrates how much fun it is to use the cube. Red is on roll here. Should red double? If you were red, would you double? And if you were blue, would you accept the double, or would you pass and just give up your points? Well, backgammon is all about odds. Give it some thought. What would you do? Well, if you're red, you should certainly double. You're going to win this game most of the time, and you would like to play for twice as much. And if you're blue, if you figure the odds right, you would know to pass this cube because you don't win 25%. Let's see exactly how often blue will win this game and red will win this game. Let's see what rolls miss, because most of the time red wins. So instead of counting the rolls that are good for red, let's just count the rolls that are bad for red. Bad rolls are a 1-1. Red would lose if he rolls a 1-1 or a 2-1. So that's 2 rolls, but 2-1 can be rolled 2 ways. He could have a 2 on this dice and a 1 on this dice. So every number can be rolled 2 ways except for doubles, which could only be rolled 1 way. So there's 1, and now there's 2 3 ways that he loses. He also loses if he rolls a 3-1. So that makes 5 ways, and there's one more roll where he loses with a 3-2. That's 7 ways. Well, 9 out of 36 is 25%, so blue is obviously not winning this game 25% of the time. Red should double, and blue should pass. Now, if red's going to win 80% of the time, why doesn't he just roll? Why should he double? Because if he just rolls, and he rolls one of those bad numbers, he will lose. In fact, he's going to lose about 19% of the time. If he doubles, he wins for sure because blue will pass. Wouldn't you rather win for sure than lose about 19% of the time? Now, of course, blue might make a mistake and take. That's even better for red. He'll win even more that way. So you don't care if your opponent makes a mistake. You want to double if you have a nice lead, and you want to, you hope your opponent will take when you have too good a lead. But this is too good a lead. Now let's change the position and see what's going on here. Well, I'll save you some time. There are 13 rolls that miss now. By the way, the computer does have a quick way of showing us what those 13 ways are. I can name them 1 1, 1 2, 1 3, 1 4, 2 3, 2 4, and 3 4. And that adds up to 13 rolls. And I can show you that list right here. I'm able to name them just because I went in order by eyesight, but I can also check it. Let's see if there's 13 rolls. 2, remember there's 2 ways to roll a 4 3. You could have a 3 on the other dice and a 4 on the other dice. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 rolls. Well, 12 out of 36 is 33%, so this is close to 36% that blue wins the game. So red should double and blue should take. Let's see what our friend says. It says double take, and blue does win 36% of the time. So red should double, because if you're going to win 64% of the time, wouldn't you like to play for twice as much? Of course you would. You're going to be sorry if you double and you lose. It's going to happen 36% of the time. But if you're going to be happy 64% and unhappy 36%, I like those odds. That's 2 to 1 odds. I want to double and double the stakes. And again, blue should take, because even though he loses 36% of the time, he's losing a lot less by taking than by passing, because it's well over 25%. Let me show you this illustrated. I made a little chart here that shows the actual math. Let me do it as a slideshow so we can see it better. This is that position. Now, blue wins 13 out of 36 rolls. If he passes, let's say you played the game 36 times, he would lose 36 points, or an average of 1 point per game. But if he takes the cube, 13 times he wins times 2, because remember, the cube went to 2. So he would win 26 points, and 23 times, remember there's 36 possible rolls, so 23 times he'd lose times 2, he'd lose 46 points. So if he takes, he loses 20 points, which is 0.55 points per game. So wouldn't you rather lose about a half a point a game than 1 point a game? That's because it's so far over 25%. That's our break-even point. Now, that's the basis of the doubling cube. A lot of people play, when you play for individual games or for money, that there's the Jacobi Rule. Oswald Jacobi, who was my first teacher and a good friend of mine, I played bridge and gin with him in Dallas back in the 1960s when I was a young man. He taught me backgammon. He came up with the idea that you don't get credit for a doubled game, for a gammon or a backgammon or a triple game, unless somebody has turned the cube. So let's say that you are in this position and you're about to win a gammon or a backgammon, but you've never turned the cube. If it's a money game, it doesn't matter. Red's only going to get the credit for 1 point, even if he rolls a double 6 here. He only wins 1 point. So he would have had to have turned the cube or had received the cube. It doesn't matter which side it's on in order to win the double or triple game. So that's one of the reasons why, even though when you're slaughtering your opponent, you should go ahead and double, and hopefully if your opponent's smart, he'll just give you the point rather than just play it out. Now in Tavla, you're forced to play out horrible games to the very end, as painful as it is, but those games get doubled out earlier and you can move on to the next game much more quickly. That's why Oswald, who was probably obsessive compulsive OCD, because he was always in a hurry to do something and always looking for action. He was also a great gin player, one of the top bridge players of all time, and a top backgammon player. He was a national champion, world champion of backgammon twice. So he invented this way to shorten the game with the doubling cube. But the doubling cube makes the game very, very exciting, because again, if you give the cube to the player, he might come back at 4, and then the player who has it at 4, if he gets the lead back, he can come back at 8. So very simply, this is the reason that we have the doubling cube. It just makes the game so much more exciting. It ends games that are being slaughtered so that they can end really quickly and you can go on to the next game. It has a lot of complexity in figuring out when to give the cube and when to take the cube. It's an art and a skill, and it all breaks down to mathematics, but there are many positions where you just have to make your best guess, and many people, even top players, will disagree and make mistakes a lot on the cube. It adds another element to the game. Instead of just playing the checkers well, you also have to make these cube decisions, which makes the game much, much more complex and fun. So if you love Tavla, If you love SheshBesh, if you love to play without the cube, I promise you that when you learn to start playing with the cube, you'll find this game much more fun. In fact, after I learned about the doubling cube, I started using it when I played pool. I started using it when I played gin rummy. On the golf course, we use the doubling cube. There's the whole concept of the idea of doubling the stakes or making a bet, like in poker, that the other player either has to give up and pay you or play for double, is really, really a fun way to play this game. And one of the reasons why backgammon tournaments are so much fun and backgammon play with the doubling cube is so much fun. I love this game. I encourage you to try learning with the cube. Find a local backgammon club. Find other people playing with the cube. Places like Turkey, where they've always played without the cube, they've discovered the cube. Now there's hundreds, even thousands of people in Turkey playing with the cube, and they become some of the better players in the world. Greece has discovered the cube. All these traditional Mediterranean areas. Iran has an incredible group of top backgammon players that recently discovered the cube and have mastered this game with the cube. You'll find it's just a great way to play. Hope you enjoy it. You could email me at pjsimborg@gmail.com if you'd like more information about the cube, where to get more information about using the cube, and where to play organized backgammon. We'll be happy to help you. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.